So, this is where I'd normally start the episode, but once again, Alex is still on her hiatus for the time being. Hopefully, the final episode before she returns. Once again, I am bringing in a number of guests to keep the show going in the meantime. And for this episode, I have Chris from 1 Hour One Decision. How you doing, Chris?
I'm doing okay, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I witnessed a car accident on the way home today.
Oh
That
my
was
God.
probably that
Okay.
was probably the most closest I've been to one in a long time because
Wow.
I used to make jokes over on the co-op server all the time that like a car accident would just happen every week,
Yes, that's
which,
right.
which it still does. I just kind of I'm like I'm not going to mention it every time it happens unless it's serious. And
Right, right.
this was the closest I'd ever been to one. Like
Oh
literally,
no.
the guy right in front of me, the guy like in the next lane over, just decided to merge without looking right into the guy directly in front of me, and I like slammed the brakes and like swerved around,
Oh
just missed it, and I was like, if I was 1 second like farther ahead, that would have been me.
my God. Well, how appropriate for today's topic also,
Yeah,
but
I know, right? Oh, excuse me. I also am recovering from a cold still, so if I
yeah.
sound a little off, that's why. But other than that, I've been just getting through the work week. It's December now. Like
Yeah.
that's insane to me. Like I don't even know
Yeah.
what to do for Christmas
This
shopping.
this year is a blur. It really is.
It really is. I started the year like living with my sister, and now I'm a homeowner and I'm like paying mortgages and
That's
stuff.
right. Congrats. Congrats.
Thanks. Yeah, and
That's
now
awesome.
I went from having one podcast to now I have three podcasts.
You got a
Uh,
mortgage and three podcasts. What else can you ask for?
yeah. I don't sleep anymore. that's
There you
that's
go.
the key.
Yes. Awesome.
Been playing anything new recently, or
Well, Remnant 2 just came out. I've
oh,
been
nice.
kind of eyeing it for a bit. So I tried it for a while. I'll probably hop on it a little bit later. We just finished I just actually completed Cocoon
Oh, nice.
recently. That was a really cool game and what else? I've been um farting around with this game. I think it's still in early access. Lethal Company,
Oh, cool.
and it's basically like a cooperative, cooperative like horror game, but
Oh,
not
okay.
in the sense of like a phasmophobia or whatever. Like you have an objective, which is to go and collect this this gear or like random stuff for your company, and
Hmm.
like your company's like some seedy underworld kind of thing. I don't know. It's just very weird. Like so you land on planets and do all stuff. It looks very cheesy, but the thing that is that like sets this game apart is the amount of like how well done the audio is in it.
Oh, nice.
So it's a lot of spatial audio and stuff like that. So like if your crewmates are far away, you will not hear them, but then you will if they if they get killed by something, you'll hear their
Oh
screams.
no.
So it's like, but it's just a fun little game that's a good old time. But yeah, that's really what I'm going through right now.
Nice.
How about yourself?
I've been alternating between games and anime like usual.
Uh-huh.
Currently, my main game is I'm addicted to the Mario RPG remake that just came
Oh,
out.
nice. Yeah, I heard good things about it.
It is the most faithful remake I think I've ever played.
Wow.
Like it is like 1 to 1 on like almost everything, and it is honestly like I've always kind of like thought that game was a little overrated back in the day, but
Hmm.
playing it now, I'm like, no, it lives up to the hype. Like this, I have gained a new appreciation for this game, like playing the remake, and
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to finishing it eventually. It's kind. I forgot how short it was. Like I'm already almost.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
I've got I'm like I think like 20 hours in, and I've already got like 5 of the 7 stars. So
Okay. Oh, and it's funny you mentioned that game because my co-host Tom, he is a big proponent of that game, and he's very bitter that the Paper Mario series like essentially took over
mhm.
this whole franchise. So, but I actually never asked him if he was getting this game, like getting the remake, but I'm sure he's happy about it because that was like his favorite Mario RPG. Well, I mean, it was the only one, but he enjoyed that more than Paper Mario.
Mm.
So yeah.
I was always more of a Mario and Luigi fan, the other RPG series.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. More.
That one was actually co-developed. Well, not co-developed. It was the studio that made it, Alpha Dream, actually had a lot of former Square employees like that
Oh,
worked on Mario RPG at the time,
nice. Okay.
which was it was cool. Like I still think Superstar Saga and Bowser's Incest Story might be the two best Mario RPGs, but that's very
Yeah.
subjective.
Yeah. Yes, it sure is. We all have opinions, Bill, and that's okay.
Yep. Other than that, I've been watching my buddy Matt over on Geek Addicts. He's got me now watching the old 90s Rurouni Kenshin anime.
Oh,
And
okay.
I completely missed it back in the day, and I mostly only
Yeah.
know it now for the controversy surrounding the author. But
Oh,
watching the series now, it's actually been pretty entertaining. It's very 90s,
yeah.
like a
It
very
seems
old
like it.
anime.
Hmm.
But I've been liking it so far. There's actually a new one. They're like redoing it currently right now, and
Oh,
I might be watching that after just to see how it
okay.
compares.
I think it didn't Netflix do a live action as well.
Yeah, so that's actually why I'm watching it now, because we had done we'd done an episode where we watched the first live action one. It was actually a really
Ah,
good movie,
okay.
so it got me
That's good.
interested in checking out the old anime.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I haven't watched much anime. I just finished the Scott Pilgrim series, and that was pretty enjoyable. I guess it's the closest thing to an anime. There was one that a couple people have been telling me to try. That's on Netflix, I believe. It's like Blue Samurai or um,
Hmm.
I don't.
I'll
I
have
forget
to
the total.
I'll have to double
It's
check. I'm not
it's
familiar with
fairly
that one.
recent, but I've heard I heard it's quite good, and yeah, that's all I've been really watching recently. Oh, I don't know. It's not really anime like Invincible, but that's
That's one I gotta watch at some point. I've heard
yeah,
excuse me. I've heard very good things about it.
it is. It's I mean, Kirkman doing Kirkman things. So yeah, it's pretty well done and close to the source material. So
Hmm.
um, and yeah, everyone like you got J.K. Simmons,
Hmm.
um, playing Omni Man and Steve. What's his name in the Walking Dead? Oh my God,
Hmm.
great. No, not Glenn. Glenn.
Oh,
Glenn
okay.
from The Walking Dead. Yes. He's in the show too. He plays Invincible, and yeah, it's actually a pretty good cast overall. Surprisingly stacked cast, I would say. But yeah, it's I think it's worth a watch, and there aren't that many episodes either, and
Hmm.
they've broken up this second season into two parts, kind of like like they already started with how The Walking Dead does it,
Yeah.
or did it, and so d- take that as however you want to take that, but it is well done though. So
Yeah, that one's definitely on my list. Like I'm like really big into that old like 90s like style superhero kind of like aesthetic. And
hmm.
excuse me. I figured I've seen like clips of it. I'm like, that looks like something I'd enjoy. I just
Yeah.
the backlog is so big. I just don't have
Yeah, I'm
time.
sure. I'm sure. And I guess the only thing is like I'm the show or the story overall is very violent. So
Mm.
even though you expect it, it's still kind of shocking when it happens, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, we're going there. Okay, so yeah, it's good though. Overall, I would say. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I look forward to checking it out at some point.
yeah.
Um
Have you tried the Castlevania series at all?
I have. I've seen the
Okay.
first two seasons of it. I gotta watch season three at some point. I loved like
Yeah.
the first
Yeah.
two seasons I watched.
Yeah, it was so good. And then there's the spin-off Nocturne that
Mm.
came out, and I was kind of up and down with that series, but it was uh for a stupid cheesy reason I appreciate it more by the end of it. And But yeah, I think overall it's like it's nice to be here at a time where we could talk about like video game adaptations in a positive way,
Yeah.
you know. That's something I can like the people that I've grown up and seen all this crappy stuff like no we could do this better, and they have, and I'm happy for that.
It's
So
like
yeah,
back in the day, like the only real good adaptation I could think of was like the Mortal Kombat movie.
right, right, right.
Excuse me.
I agree. So it's good to see people are taking this to heart and
Hmm.
making some good stuff.
Yeah. But speaking of video games, we kind of to it earlier. The topic for this episode is actually going to be talking about racing games, and
Yeah.
racing games are to me like a very interesting genre in gaming because they're in this weird limbo where they kind of sit on that edge of sports games, but at the same time they're
Hmm.
really not sports games.
Right.
Like there's maybe like a few, like I guess like a NASCAR game is considered a sports game, but it's still a racing game
Yeah.
at the same time. That's why they're in this weird sort of like it's really hard to categorize them. But to me, like they've always been like one of the more fascinating like genres just because like
Hmm.
you'd think for such a simple concept of you've got like a number of racers and you want to be the first one to cross the finish line,
Right.
there's a surprisingly large amount of different diverse like
Yeah.
styles they can use to like display this genre in particular.
I agree. Yeah. And yeah, and like to your point, it's a very simple premise. Get to the finish line the fastest. Generally, it is what that is, and yeah, I guess also it just depends on the type of vehicle that you use to race
Mm.
as well. So like as I was like trying to remember all the games, all the racing games that I've played in the past, it's like, man, you can yeah, you're right. It's a weird genre to be in, and I think that's why it's hard for um like, when you talk about like game of the year stuff and those type of categories, sometimes this is like the hardest one to kind of find a game that might fit that. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. I don't know, but but it is cool to just. I mean, I'm glad that we had having this opportunity to kind of chat about this though, because
Mm.
I know I've played quite a few in the past, and I definitely I know you've got your Rolodex, your Wikipedia in your head of everything. So I'm kind of curious to see where this goes with you. With you. So,
Yeah. I guess like a little backstory, like racing games are probably my second favorite genre of video games behind RPGs.
nice.
And in particular, like one of my hobbies for collecting, because collecting is not a fun hobby anymore, just because it's become so absurdly expensive over the years.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do now is I love to collect racing games because I said earlier, racing games kind of straddle that line of between sports games and regular games.
Right. Right.
Racing games are absurdly cheap, like to the point where like
Yeah.
you'd be amazed like how many of them are literally worthless. And one of my favorite pastimes now is I've been collecting all the PS1 like era racing games I can find.
Oh, okay.
And it's really fun to go to like a retro game store and just look through their PS1 rack because you can go into like the clearance rack or like the discount rack and
Yeah.
you'll scroll through and literally every time I do this I find like five more racers that like I never heard of before and they're
Huh.
all like $1 a piece. So I'm like, all
That's
right.
hey, that's awesome.
Like literally one of my favorite ones I found, it was a PS1 racing game and the name was literally just racing. Like I
And
saw
it
that.
held up. It was actually fun to play and all that.
It was okay. Like
Okay.
for racing, it didn't. So it controlled okay. Like it didn't like it wasn't miserable to. I didn't feel like I was on ice while racing.
Okay.
But it was pretty. The tracks were pretty generic, and it was kind of a. It was funny, like playing it. I'm like a racing game called racing. Uh, it wasn't the worst racing game I've ever played. I'll say that.
Okay. All right. What is the worst one that you've ever played?
Oh, that's excuse me. That is difficult because the easy answer would be like something like Big Rigs, but I
Big
don't
rigs,
consider
okay.
Big Rigs a game. Big Rigs is a
Hmm.
waste of time. Because you can't lose. There's no game. Like you literally,
Yeah,
there's no way to lose that game.
right.
Um, I'd say in terms of an actual racer that I've played though that I find bad. Ah, it's tough because I'm very forgiving on these type of games.
Okay.
Like even like Sonic R, which is not a good racing game by any means. I still get enjoyment out of it just because of it's actually a fairly interesting idea,
Hmm. Hmm.
just poorly executed.
Okay. I feel like that's a lot. You could say that a lot of times with Sonic games,
Yeah,
and that's
unfortunately. Like Sonic R is fun to me because it is the only Sonic racing game where Sonic runs like on his feet
oh,
and it just controls terribly. Like it's so
oh,
stiff and slippery and it's just not fun to play. But it has
man.
really interesting track designs. Like they're
Uh-huh.
like they have multiple routes and like you can find all these different like secrets and stuff. Like unfortunately, there's only 5 tracks in the game. It's a very
Oh,
very basic racer. And I always laugh because like the later Sonic racing games, like Sonic and Sega All Stars Racing or Sonic All Stars Transformed,
right.
um, those are phenomenal kart racers.
Hmm.
And a lot of people always ask why isn't Sonic running, and I always joke saying because they tried it in Sonic R and it was bad. And they actually
I,
wrote in. Oh, go on.
no, no. I was just curious. Like, does it like? I mean, I guess it has to play like a racing game, but I'm thinking as as you're talking about it that it feels like Subway Surfers or something like that, where it's just like one lane that you just kind of switch back and forth between or something like that.
So it is really weird. Like you have an acceleration button, but you can
Hmm.
also hold forward on the analog stick, and Sonic will run forward.
Oh.
It is a very oddly like programmed game. Like he is so stiff to turn to. Like you have to you like wrench the D-pad over, and he like moves like a tank. Like,
Oh no.
and he's
That's
also stupidly fast, so it doesn't help make it any easier.
yeah. Yeah, I guess they were trying to prove a point that like you going that fast, making a turn will probably be very difficult. I don't know. So,
I'm not really sure, to be honest.
yeah.
It
Yeah.
is a fascinating period, and I mean, this was before Sonic really became the laughing stock of the industry too, because this was the Saturn era. He was still pretty
Oh,
popular at the time. So,
yeah. Yeah.
um, one thing I wanted to ask was like, what was your first racing game?
Oh man. My first racing, I have to, and this is really gonna age me, but um, I want to say it's the original Need for Speed Hot Pursuit.
Oh, nice. That
Like,
is that's Need for Speed 3, I want to say, on the
I
PlayStation.
think no, no.
Oh, okay.
Older than that. This is like I'm talking about like DOS. We're talking like
Oh,
DOS kind
okay.
of like Need for Speed. I mean, that might have been the one that got ported, but yeah, it was yeah, it was old. But then I was thinking about I guess is Excite is Excite Bike technically a racing game? I guess it is, right? Because
Yeah,
you
in
go
a
to the finish
sense.
line too. So yeah, but I mean, I vaguely, I mean, I have played Excite Bike, but like I just vividly remember playing Hot Pursuit and like, oh man, like the cops chasing you, and then just the only thing you see is just uh, the pixelated kind of
Hmm.
dashboard and stuff like that, and it was just a good old time just trying to figure out how to do that, how to play a racing game. Like I was much younger at the time, so it was like figuring out how to control things with a mouse. Well, not a mouse, but with a keyboard and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was like, what button do I press and then getting caught by the cops and stuff like that. But it was cool. Like it got me to um start my love for cars in general.
Mm.
So that was fun, and yeah, I a little later in my gaming history, um, there was a game on the Nintendo. I believe it was like Al Unser Jr. Racing,
Hmm.
It was a I think kart racing. It was a kart racing game, and a just some random kid came over to my house, and he brought that over, and he was like, "Oh, this," like I was like, "Oh wow, this is really cool." And I had my friend's copy of Battletoads with me, and he's like, "Oh, cool. Can I trade you for this? And like, I'll give you Al Unser." I was like, "Oh, sure. Why not?" So I gave him my friend's Battletoads, and I never saw him again. So I was left with this Al Unser Jr. game. And I was like, "Oh, okay, this is kind of fun, but not great." And then like my friend was like really pissed off. He was like giving me crap like most of my life about me giving away his game and how annoyed he was. I eventually did in my adult life give him back his Battletoads game during one of his birthdays, and he appreciated that, but it was still like, oh man, that was really bad. But like I was a very shitty friend to do that. So um I'm sorry.
Kids are different sometimes. We
Yeah.
don't think about it, and then it's
No,
like you grow up and you're like, maybe that wasn't the best idea.
no, it was not. I mean, yeah, never give away someone else's stuff.
Mm.
Just keep that in mind. You maybe
So,
should ask for permission.
fun fact about Need for Speed: do you know the console that Need for Speed originated on?
No. Is
So
it Jack?
the
No.
No, so there's a reason I'm bringing this up. The console that the original Need for Speed, like the one that was like sponsored by Road and Track, like the Need for Speed,
Mm.
it originated on the Panasonic 3DO.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
It,
Makes
it
sense.
is very fascinating. Like I actually have the original version of it now, and it comes in this massive box, and it has the that classic like cover art of like this the side of the tire, like the
Mm.
wheel.
Yes.
Um, It is a very impressive game on the 3DO, and it actually surprised me how well it held up compared to its PlayStation and Saturn counterparts.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I mean, like, I think like back in the day too. EA had some pretty good racing games.
Mm.
I would say like from the late '90s onward. They've had like they've definitely sprinkled in um, some good racing games throughout that time. I mean, of course, you've got the Need for Speeds, and I guess is Dirt part of their? No, Dirt's not part of their thing now. Is it? I mean, it was a Codemasters thing, but
So they technically own it now
yeah, okay.
because they own Codemasters because they have the Formula One license again.
Oh man, okay, yeah. So
Speaking of EA, my first racing game was actually also an EA racer, and this is a pretty deep cut on the original PlayStation. I think it was also N64. I'm not 100% sure on that, but
okay.
it was Hot Wheels Turbo Racing.
Oh
And this game is like surprisingly still holds up very well. It's got that very classic Hot Wheels like 90s feel. Like
yeah,
all the cars are classic like Hot Wheels, like the ones that you like remember from back in the 90s.
yeah, yeah.
It's a kart racer, so it's like very arcadey feeling, like it's not like super sim. Um a bunch of fun tracks, like there's a bunch of hidden like mystery cars you can find by like exploring the tracks.
Right.
And I will always remember this game because the introduction music is Fueled by Metallica.
Oh. Oh man. So can they actually do a remake of it? Hmm.
I'm actually curious if it was on N64. How does that sound? Because I know the N64 was not particularly great at doing real music.
Oh no. That's a
Um,
shame.
I have a feeling that if they did remake it, they just changed the song, which would honestly kind of ruin the game to
It
me.
would, yeah. I mean, I feel like that, like if you're doing a remake of a game like that, where I think audio and music is going to be like it brings you back to those times of you playing those games. So it's like it would be disappointing, I would say,
Mm.
to kind of go back and not hear those memorable memorable little intros and stuff like that. So
It was kind of like the excuse me. It was kind of like the Tony Hawk series when they remade Pro Skater 1 and 2 and they brought
hmm
back most of the music and it was like It's like if they didn't get that back, it would have completely changed the feel of those games.
Yeah, yeah. Like if they tried to modernize, like with newer artists and stuff like that, I think there would be people be like, "What the hell is this crap? Like, get this out of here."
I'm just gonna pause real quick. Occasionally you're getting like some static feedback through the mic.
Oh, is this better now, or
Um,
is it still is it still
yeah,
doing
yeah, I just noticed it.
shit? What the heck? What am I gonna do here? This was happening before. Let me see. I'm just gonna disconnect the cable. All right, I'm gonna try talking again. Is it still doing the fancy schmancy staticky noises?
You
No.
sound good right now.
Okay. I wonder if it's like me playing around with the dial while I'm. I don't know. That's weird.
Okay. Yeah, I
I
noticed
mean,
it like a few seconds in. I thought it went away, but then it came back.
yeah. I was. We were doing a recording thing
Oh, it
a
just
couple
came. It
weeks.
it
It
just
did
did it
come back.
again.
Shit. Um. All right. Let me see. There's some. I don't even know what to do at this point because I fixed it. Um. I guess let me try to disconnect the USB cable. One sec. Let's see. Is it using the audio right now? Do you hear it?
Yeah, I
Do
hear
you
you.
hear me? You hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just gonna keep trying to talk and see if this starts to do the staticky noises again. Um, I don't know. We are talking about racing. We're talking about our past racing stuff. Is it acting up right now?
I haven't heard it yet.
Of course, it's going to be like as soon as we start again that it starts to act up.
Um, I don't hear it now. Worst comes to worst, if we can't get rid of it, I'll deal with it in post, or I'll just
Okay,
let it ride.
I'll try. Oh my god. Okay, let's see.
Okay.
Let's see how it goes.
Okay. So we were talking about the classics, like bringing back old school racers and
Yeah,
how they just wouldn't. It's really hard to like keep the feel of those old games modernly because modern a lot of like modern tastes are so different from what they were back then.
yeah,
Um, so it's really interesting to me. Like, what got me into racing games is I've never been a big like stick and ball sports guy. I've always been a I grew up a NASCAR fan watching stock car racing and later kind of transitioned into open wheel racing like Formula One, IndyCar.
yeah.
And those games, like the NASCAR racing games EA made, I used to play the hell out of back in the day, even though I was terrible at them. Um, and it's funny how like going from those, I would just kind of jump over to like say I was a big PlayStation kid, so I had immediately I saw like Crash Team Racing. I had to play that,
Yeah.
and that's how I kind of discovered the kart racer. And I was envious of my friends who had N64s and could play Mario Kart at the time and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So were you into the Gran Turismos and all that stuff too? Okay.
So Gran Turismo 1 is a interesting game to me because it was a
Hmm.
game that when my dad played video games, he was very big into Gran Turismo.
Nice.
And excuse me. Gran Turismo that was my first real experience with a sim racing game
Okay. Yep.
because I remember like going from like Hot Wheels Turbo Racing to like Crash Team Racing to something like Jet Moto or like Test Drive. Like they
Hmm.
were very arcadey feeling games where they weren't Need for Speed hadn't gotten super sim yet by this point. Like Test Drive
Yeah.
was still kind of like arcadey.
Yep.
Going into Gran Turismo though, this was like the first sim like racer I played, and I remember like getting into the car for the first time. I knew nothing about tuning up a car, messing
Yeah.
around with all those features, And so I get on the track, I try to turn and drive straight to a wall. And I'm like,
Yes,
the
because
car,
you like you're learning how to properly brake and all that stuff. Yeah, yeah.
it's like, oh, the car doesn't just turn immediately. It actually works like a real car.
Right. Yeah.
um
I,
excuse me. Um honestly, like I love I'm not the biggest sim racing fan because I
mhm,
enjoy racing games more just for the dumb fun of them.
right.
But I have a massive appreciation for games like Gran Turismo, Forza,
Hmm.
um, Project Gotham Racing, like any of those like more realistic racers.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of funny. My mutual friend of ours, Chris Copeland, over on
Oh
the
yeah.
Retro Hangover podcast,
Yeah.
he once made the comment to me that like Gran Turismo is technically an RPG.
Yeah.
And
I can see
at
that.
first, at first I was like, all right. And then I thought about it. And he made a really good point about like you gotta build up stats, you gotta like
Yeah.
upgrade your vehicle, like do all this stuff in like a
Hmm.
real life kind of like setting. And I'm like, he's not wrong. Like it's a role-playing game in a sense.
I would argue even the latest Forza is even more RPG than the Gran Turismo's because like
Mm,
apparently you level up your like your character, in this case your car, and that experience only stays with that particular car. So it's like you know, if you want to get this car better, you work on this particular car and like
mm.
follow its journey, so to speak. So I thought that was interesting, and I think a lot of people, like, there's been a little bit of backlash about it because of the way that they've been following this. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird
Yeah,
that like the most recent Gran Turismo 7 and like Forza, what are they up to now for Forza?
I think they've reset it. It's just called Forza Motorsport at
Oh,
this point.
okay. Uh, the most recent Forza,
Yeah.
they've both been sort of controversial, and I'm like,
Mm.
I'm not really sure why. It's like I feel like gamer tastes have just changed, I guess, over the years.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is competition too, right? Like you have
Hmm,
the Project Cars, the Assetto
that's true.
Corsas, and that stuff, like where people are like, "Oh, these games are not as realistic as we thought they were," and yeah, I mean, I think they're also trying to appeal to a larger audience in a sense, and it's also interesting, as we're talking about racing games. I feel like they also have a very low barrier of entry,
Hmm,
right? For the most part, it is very easy to just jump in and start. You just hit the gas and brake. You just need two buttons, and the controller to steer. That's it. Um, but almost like a fighting game, like if you want to get better, you need to kind of learn how to, get like mess with those few buttons, and it's like it's crazy like how complex it can get. And like speaking of games or racing games that I'm not a big fan of but I respect, is like the F1 series. Like those
hmm.
those games are really freaking hard. They are like I tried a couple times because a bunch of them are on Game Pass. I tried a bunch of them because like, oh, this is cool, because I was like, I think you and I have talked about this before. I was getting really into the F1, like the whole drama of the seasons,
Oh,
and I was
Drive
like,
to
oh, you know what?
Survive.
Yeah, yeah, Drive to Survive, and and then just like I was like, you know what, let me try this game and see how it is. And I was like, oh no, this is I give full respect to the people that really get into these games and the actual drivers themselves, because it is nuts to be able to try to steer these rockets,
Yeah,
uh, and survive every day, like
like
make it alive out of these.
I have so much more playing the F1 games. I have so much more respect for like Max Verstappen, Lewis
Yeah,
Hamilton, like
yeah.
literally the greatest drivers on the freaking planet.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. I mean, like you got Hamilton. Like these guys just know how to do it, and it's like, okay, they've been doing it pretty much their entire lives, but still, like, to be dedicated that much and to not get harmed, because the like you got to think about the other people that are gunning for their spots, right? That
mhm.
might not be doing it in the nicest way. Um, being very aggressive on the roads and stuff like that. So on the tracks rather, and yeah, it's scary. It's scary. It is a scary sport to be in as a driver, and let alone so.
Those games fascinate me too, to a degree as well, because Formula One is the most it's like the most fascinating form of motorsports in my opinion
Yeah,
because it's not as much as the driver matters in a lot of ways. It's also the car
absolutely.
because they have to build the cars are all built from like scratch and like
Yeah.
to this day I still say like nowadays it's kind of a tie. It's like Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton are like the two greatest drivers pretty much of all time.
Hmm.
It's like you look at Max right now, the guy is unstoppable because he's got
Yeah.
he's a machine, but also like his car is just that much better than everyone else's. And then you look at
Right.
Lewis right now is like still one of the greatest drivers of all time, but his car is just a dog right now. And it like the fact that he finished third in points this year says a lot about how much talent that man still
Right.
has.
Exactly. Like, yeah, to get the maximum potential out of a vehicle that might not be the best, and to do that is ridiculous. And like, as I was going through that series too, it's just fascinating to me how, like, you think that if a car is doing well in one season, they're like, okay, let's not mess around with it too much. But like, to your point, they kind of be like, all right, let's just start over and try to do something new. It's like, why? This worked before. It's just like, why do you have to do that? And I don't know if it's like, if it's kind of like job security or whatever, that they want to show that they know what they're doing, or to kind of, you know squeeze the most potential out of a car. But like, that can really, for lack of a better term, blow up in your face. So
Mm.
it's like, it's crazy.
It's
um
funny too, going back to speaking of like just the F1 games in general. The
yeah.
history of the F1 games is really interesting because it goes back like wicked far. Like,
Hmm.
so like back during like the early 90s, like into the 2000s, there was two concurrent F1 series running actively. There was
Hmm.
so there was the ones made by Psygnosis, later known as Sony Studio Liverpool. They had their own F1 series that was exclusive to PlayStation.
Right. Oh
Um,
yes, I think I
Most of
remember
them, unfortunately, did not come out in America because
that.
at the time, America didn't really care about Formula One. It really hadn't picked up yet.
Hmm.
Um, so they kind of only released those in Europe for the longest time. But EA, believe it or not, EA had an F1 series before they acquired Codemasters, and they released like I think like four or five F1 games that were more. They weren't as like realistic as like the Psygnosis ones, but they were still pretty good. And then
Yeah.
Codemasters ended up getting the license exclusively after Sony dropped it and EA dropped it. And it's funny because now they've gone full circle and EA owns them again and has the
Yeah.
license.
Oh wow. That's 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 just funny how licensing works and stuff like that, with these big, big name brands of sort of,
Mm.
and so to speak. But um I like, kind of taking a diversion here. Going back to kind of the arcade racings. Of course, we've got the Ridge Racers, we've
Ridge
got
Racer.
the um but then there's the rally games. Have you ever played like the Colin McRae rally games?
So I've played a lot of Dirt.
Yeah,
I love Dirt. Like I know
Dirt's fun. Yeah.
The first couple of Dirt games were under the Colin McRae branding as well,
Yeah.
before he sadly passed away.
Yeah.
Um, I've played a bunch of rally games. I have a whole bunch of them. 3DO actually published a couple three
Oh,
rally
okay.
games back in the day as well. Um, Rallying is a very interesting kind of motorsport because
Yeah.
it's like you watch rallying and you're like, how these people are insane. Like the shit they do. Like they're just basically driving through countrysides, like going like
Right.
thousands of miles an hour, and it's like one wrong move and they're dead. And it's
Yeah.
like
Or they'll take someone out that's watching them or something like that. Yeah, it's
I've seen
crazy.
like video clips of like a guy like goes sideways and he's literally facing somebody's house and then he somehow saves it. And I'm just like, how?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
those
It's
games are hard. They're
oh yeah.
not easy.
And like, it's funny because like, you're not racing anyone. You're just like, it's you and the track, right? You're not.
Mm.
So I mean, yes, you're trying to go for your best time and whatnot, but it is like, man, like, there's the pressure too, because you're, most of the time, at least from what I remember, you'll see where you are in terms of like the positioning of the, time, best times and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
uh, you know, you're trying to push as much as you can, but at the same time, not like, you know, just take a big spill somewhere and then completely kill all that effort that you've taken to get to that particular position.
Mm.
And like, oh man, I just remember like all the damage, like all the damage like the models and stuff like that that they would have in these games, where you're like, you'll see like the bumpers just hanging off and all that
Yep.
stuff. It was so cool. It was so cool
Uh,
how well done it was. So
to me, like one of my favorite rally games from back in the day was Sega Rally. Back on the
oh yes, yes. I mean, that was like more arcadey though, right?
so it was an arcade game originally, and it was ported to Saturn, I believe.
Yeah.
And then the sequel was on Dreamcast. They were super arcadey and fun to play, but like
Yeah.
they were so hard too because you'd be going from like dirt to like asphalt back to dirt,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
the car felt like it was on dirt. And I remember like the first time I played the game, like I was out of control because I could not, I couldn't fathom racing on dirt at the time, and it was
Yeah.
crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't know how they. I mean, I get practice, of course, but like being able to just know how your car is going to react in certain situations, and like again, like uh, that's like you're driving these cars most of the time in these games on like a semi ideal conditions, right? A sunny
Hmm.
day or whatever. And then but like some of them are in real life like playing or driving in the rain or like snow or whatever. So it's just ridiculous like what these guys are capable of doing with these cars. So like,
Oh
man,
yeah.
all right.
I so going back into like more sporty kind of racing games, the
Mhm.
NASCAR series that EA did was pretty fun back in the day. Like I still remember
Yeah.
playing all of those. Particularly like 2002, 2003 up to like 2004.
Yeah.
But one of my favorite NASCAR games of all time is one of the most ridiculous because it's such a insane idea. It was very obscure. You can get this game super cheap now because no one cares about it, but it's called a NASCAR Rumble, and
Okay.
I think I've talked about it before in like the past. But
Is this like their version of like NFL Blitz or something like that?
so let me explain. It is literally the opening cutscene for the game is they're racing at probably Daytona or something, and
Uh-huh.
then randomly one of them just crashes through the wall, and they're just racing on the streets, and it's literally NASCAR kart racer.
Oh, okay.
Like all the course, and like you can like the cars get like souped up with like these big like engine grills like popping out of
Oh
the
no.
fronts,
Okay. Okay.
and it is literally like a kart racer. Like you go through like these o- completely outlandish like tracks, like going through
Mhm.
like rivers and like over like ice mountains in NASCARs, by the way.
Right, of
Um,
course.
and you get like power ups, and you can like launch like rockets and like tornadoes. It is literally the most insane, ridiculous concept ever,
Wow.
but it is so fun like
Oh,
to
it
play.
sounds like a blast.
And like you can tell the develop. So it was actually made by EA. I believe it was EA Blackthorn Studio. They're
Okay.
the um they're the studio that did a lot of the they did a bunch of Need for Speed games. I believe they did
Mhm.
most of the NASCAR games. Um but they did what's funny is I get the feeling like they were just making a kart racer. And then someone like was like,
Yeah.
we have the NASCAR license. Why don't you just throw
Slap it on.
NASCAR in here?
Yeah.
It's funny because there's a bunch of bonus cars that aren't NASCAR related. Like there's just a golf cart or
Oh, you're
chicken truck. Like it's just a
chicken truck.
chicken truck, like a
Amazing.
school bus. Just all these like absurd car designs, and I'm like, you play it, and you're just like, this is a NASCAR game, and I'm like, yep.
Ugh, okay. Well,
It had a sequel on PS2 called Rumble Racing, which is the same thing, but it did not have the NASCAR license, so it's not nearly as interesting.
okay. Was it still as fun though?
It's still fun to play it, but it doesn't have
Okay.
like it doesn't have the absurdity to it that
Right.
NASCAR
Okay.
Rumble did.
All right. I get that. I
It's
get
funny because F1 later down the line did a similar thing with the F1 race stars,
that. Oh.
which was it was like they were all like super deformed, like little like chibis in like these little go-kart F1 cars
So
racing
the
through like
giant heads are popping out of the
yeah.
car. Yeah, okay.
And like it's super funny playing it, like, because it was based around 2011, I wanna say, so, like, Lewis is still driving, like, for McLaren at the time, and they're, like, still in the
Okay.
silver
Yeah.
McLarens. Um, it's a really goofy game. Codemasters made it too, which makes it
Oh,
even
did
funny.
they?
Yeah, but it's a goofy kart racer that's, like, really fun to play.
I guess they were getting a little. They wanted to, try something a little different from the regular F1 stuff. So yeah, good for them to try that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure, like you being a developer on like in one of these studios that all they do is make a particular game, like you've got to feel a little like I want to do something else, at least something a little different or whatever. Like like the guys that do the FIFAs and the Maddens and the
Mhm.
even the Forzas, like I feel like you got to let them breathe a little bit, let them try something else out, like just so they can get that out of their system, get their creative juices flowing, and maybe that'll help them make new ideas for the next iteration of the series. But like, yeah, I don't know.
It's kind of
I
funny
hear you.
you, go back to Gran Turismo, Polyphony Digital, one of their earliest games, like, their only non-racing game is, like, a rail shooter called Omega Boost.
Really? Huh?
It's like Panzer Dragoon, but, you play as, like, a mech robot.
Oh,
It's,
wow.
like, the only game they made that wasn't racing related. It's pretty good. It's like a decent, like, rail shooter, but it's
Yeah.
so random, like, when you put it next to, like, the rest of their, gameography. Like, I think the only other non-car racing game is they did a game called Taurus Trophy, which was, like, a bike racing game.
Mm, okay. Hmm.
It's funny because the Forza Unleashed or whatever the Forza spin-off series is,
Oh, Horizon.
Forza Horizon,
Yeah,
their developer is making the new Fable.
they
So
are. Yeah, yeah.
it's like, hey, why not?
I mean, yeah, I'm cool with them trying something. I mean, that's a big project to be working on,
Mm,
because Microsoft seems to be very hesitant with their IPs, and but for them to give them that kind of freedom to say, okay, go ahead, let's see what you can do with this. But
yeah.
at least from what we've seen, it seems that they have at least the humor part of it. Don't know how it's going to be in terms of gameplay, but like they've done open worlds. Like Horizon is essentially an open world racing game.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, what do you think about these open world style racing games?
Excuse me. I like the idea.
Yeah,
I think the problem a lot of them have is they just feel empty.
yeah,
Like, when The Crew got announced, like, I was super hyped for that game,
yeah.
and then I played it and it had a story, and I was like, "This is weird." Um, the controls weren't good, and I was like, "Wow, the one thing I liked about the one key thing about this game that I needed to be good isn't good."
Oh
But,
no.
it was very slippery to feel to drive. I don't know if it's been patched because I never played The Crew 2, but,
Yeah,
um, because like, that idea of, like, being, like, an open world racer where you could literally drive from, like, New York to, like, San Francisco.
right.
That is a cool idea, and unfortunately, we still have yet to truly experience something like that because, like, I just
Hmm.
don't think technology's there yet.
Yeah.
Um, I love the idea though, like one of my favorite this isn't really racing, but it's a little tangentially related is, say playing like an open world, like, sandbox game like, Grand Theft Auto or something.
Right.
One of my favorite challenges I like to do when I play Grand Theft Auto is I'll occasionally try, like, a run where I'll obey all traffic laws.
Yes, I think I've done that too. It's
And just try to
incredibly boring. It's a lot. It tests your patience for sure, but
it makes the game a lot different overall,
yeah.
but it's, like, really funny, like, you're stopping at the red light, just waiting, and you're like
Yeah.
like, "Okay." It's real
Yeah.
life. This is why they don't make super realistic games like this because then you realize real life is kind of boring.
Yeah. But like I'm curious to see what they're gonna continue to do with GTA 6 and stuff like that. But
Mm,
yeah, I agree. And look, I mean, I think the closest thing right now is what Flight Simulator, where they have all that map data, right? So like if
mm,
someone can get that map data now for highways and roads like that, I mean, it's possible. It's getting close. It's getting close, Bill.
mm.
So we might have that time where we can actually drive across the continental US. Like do an actual cannonball run with that. So
Mm.
that'd be kind of cool to do
I
that
would
to
love
see.
to just go from like all the major like US cities and just like do
Right.
this massive just like drive. It's gonna be a long overtaking, but you never know. Someday.
Yeah. Yeah. Someday. And
Um,
yeah.
so moving on to a different kind of racer now. One of my favorite racing series of all time is it's unfortunately kind of in limbo right now because it's a Sony franchise, and a lot of Sony franchises are just in limbo permanently. But um, Wipeout,
It's all Last of Us at this point. So
I
yeah.
know. Sorry, Liv.
Sorry, Liv.
Um, it's sad because I love the first Last of Us, and the second one just
Mm.
I've never been so indifferent to a video game in my life. But that's a story for another day. when I when I
Yeah.
when I finally finish that game, I'm gonna have to do a podcast with her, and like we're gonna just have to like hash it out.
Oh, that would be
But
yeah.
that's if I ever finish it because that game makes me miserable. um, but anyways, so going back to Sony, the Wipeout series is probably one of my
Yeah.
favorite racers of all time. Because there's just something really cool about a super futuristic racing game with weapons,
Hmm.
and you go so freaking fast, and like the courses are just insane.
Yeah, like I mean, could you would it, I guess I don't I was gonna say like is it kind of like a spiritual successor to like the F-Zero stuff?
So they were like kind of rivals for a while there because they
Yeah.
were releasing at the same time. The thing is, they don't really play similarly.
Hmm.
They're similar in the idea that they're futuristic racers that use like hover vehicles.
Right.
Um, F Zero is a bit more racy, I'd say, and it's more about like just overall speed. Wipeout's a bit more about like it's about racing, but it's also there's like the battle like combat elements to it because like all the
Yeah.
vehicles have weapons. And you wouldn't think that would add that much, but it changes the entire meta of like the racing games because now you're kind of like strategically, um, you have to like kind of like strategically like place yourself in positions, and it's not like a kart racer where it's like a gimmick. This is more a strategical thing that you have to like incorporate into your races like during
Yeah.
the
Huh.
games. Um, Yeah, because that's like a common thing. Like people always compare the F Zero and Wipeout, but
Wipeout, yeah.
they're not really similar in terms of gameplay.
Okay. Hmm.
Because
I mean,
there was a Wipeout that came out on N64,
well, there you go.
which is still one of the craziest things to me. Because this was after Sony purchased Psygnosis,
Oh.
so Sony owned Psygnosis, but they still released that on N64. It was a Psygnosis was a weird like Sony owned them, but they were still semi-independent for a
Huh.
while.
I mean like well, I don't know. I guess some of these studios like not Naughty Dog, Insomniac, but they were independent for a while, right?
They were independent until 2020, I want to say, when they
Yeah.
finally got accepted Sony's offer to purchase them.
Right.
Because
So I was like,
that was a big deal when they made Sunset Overdrive. Because it was like
yeah.
they basically went to play on the other side of the fence.
Right. Right. And then I guess Sony was like, "Wait, whoa, whoa, whoa! I thought we had an agreement here." So it's like, well, they put the pressure on them to get a nice little offer for them. Maybe that's maybe I don't know.
I always said like when people were making the huge deal about Microsoft buying Bethesda, I was kind of like, you know, guys, Sony just bought literally like one of the greatest developers of all time, and like nobody's saying a word about it.
Yeah,
And Microsoft at the time bought Bethesda, who were like the laughing
yeah,
stock of the game industry for
yeah,
not being able to release complete games. So
yeah. This is true. This is unfortunately still happening though for the most part for them. I want to
yeah,
say minus Hi-Fi Rush, but that's besides the point. But
Uh,
yeah,
excuse me, a stop clock is right twice a
yeah,
day.
exactly,
Um,
exactly.
so another, I don't think Sony owned. Well, actually, they might have. No, they did publish it. Another Sony series that a lot of people kind of forgot about, but was huge on the original PlayStation. Did you ever play Jet Moto?
Jet Moto. Oh, I want to say for a brief moment I did play that. That was like that was like a I mean it was a jet ski
They
race.
were like
Yeah,
hover bikes, kind
hover
of.
bikes. Okay.
There
Yep.
some crazy like tracks. It was actually the same studio that made Twisted Metal of all things.
Oh, really?
Single track.
Huh.
They made the first two. The third one was made by Locomotive Games, I think, and it wasn't as good as the first two.
That's when it started to go downhill.
Yeah, because they never made there was supposed to be a fourth one on PS2, but the series was just so like unremarkable at that point that they just canceled it outright.
There aren't many of those like car combat games anymore, or am I mistaken by that?
So car combat games kind of died out during the PS2 era,
Yeah.
and I think what caused that was the rise of sandbox games.
Hmm. Huh.
Because like I'm thinking about it now, like because they you remember they did Twisted Metal 2011, the one on PS3, I think it was.
Was it black? Was that black?
No, that was on PS2.
That was on
Um,
PS2. Okay.
they did one on PS3. It was just called Twisted
Just Twisted
Metal.
Metal. Okay.
It was fine, but like nobody bought it because they like heavily incorporated online elements into it, and it was just kind of it was fine, but it wasn't like anything groundbreaking because like
Hmm.
vehicular combat games were just dead by that point.
I guess there's only yeah. It's just that's interesting because it's like you almost feel like there might be is there has there been enough time for one to come back?
I think if they did a new Twisted Metal now, it would probably sell because people are desperate for Sony to do something different, basically. And we're in that point now. It's been over a decade since we've had a Twisted Metal, and
Yeah.
the series. I haven't watched it, but that series did just come out.
Yeah. It's
Um,
actually it was actually pretty fun. It was a fun
was it?
show. Yeah.
I'll have to give it a shot.
Yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
a new Twisted Metal would do pretty well, though. Honestly,
Yeah, I mean, it'd be fun to get into one of these crazy cars and almost like in a Forza way, like upgrade it and stuff like that. That'd be kind
Hmm.
of cool.
they just
Um,
have to make it a like. They have to like remember that the spirit of that series was like the local on like couch co-op multiplayer.
yeah, I true, true.
I mean, it can have online elements. That's perfectly fine, but you don't want to
Yeah,
focus solely on those because the biggest like appeal to those games was like you're sitting on the couch next to your buddy and you completely just screw them over in game and they can look you in the eyes as you're just throwing them off a building or something. It was a
yes.
different time.
Ugh, totally different time. But yeah, even that like split screen gaming is few and far between now. But it's because you know you can it's easier for someone to just jump online with someone versus coming over to their house and make it a social event, so to speak.
Mm.
But yeah, I mean, I agree that would be that I think that would be key though, just to have that, if especially if like how we were talking about earlier, like to have the give those like like the good memories of back in the day. You've got to have the couch co-op.
Mm.
Sorry, you have to have that. So um yeah, I agree. That would be if someone were to bring back Twisted Metal, that definitely needs to be there. But yeah,
Now, speaking of series that really need to come back, that unfortunately probably never will because Rockstar Games only knows how to make Grand Theft Auto now, apparently. Um, do you remember Midnight Club?
oh yeah, I remember Midnight Club.
That was like one of my favorite Rockstar games ever, just because there was just something fun about driving around like city streets, like in like these cars, and like you
Yeah,
didn't even have to race; you could just like sandbox it and just explore.
did they use the same engine as like the GTA stuff, or was it like
I'm
completely?
I'm not sure because Angel made those, or
Oh,
Rockstar San Diego, as they're known now,
okay.
aka the Red Dead team,
Oh, okay.
because Rockstar North made GTA, and I don't know how much technology they shared at that point during the PS2
Hmm.
era.
Hmm. I
Um,
wonder if everyone. Yeah, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, Midnight Club was pretty cool. I was more of a Need for Speed Underground
oh, those were
fan.
good too.
Yeah, those are great. Just just being able to, because did they come out before? I mean, Gran Turismo always had like you upgrading your cars, so to speak, but not visually like Need for Speed did. They didn't
Um,
have the licensing like where I don't know. I could be wrong. I mean,
I'd have to replay Gran Turismo 3 because it's been forever since I
yeah,
played that one. I feel like Need for Speed Underground took a lot of the ideas from Gran Turismo, but still kind of kept it in that arcadey feel.
right,
Because whenever it comes to Need for Speed, there's kind of like two camps. There's the pre-tuning era fans that like just the straight up arcade style games,
right.
and then there's the post like underground fans that love all the tuning, messing with the cars and like
Yeah,
upgrading.
yeah, yeah.
Because
I
I
mean,
Underground was a blast back in the
it was
day.
so fun, so fun. Um, and great soundtrack too. I would say,
Mm.
like it was, like I think it was a perfect arcade racer. I think for that time,
No,
and
totally.
and they really took the Fast and the Furious stuff to heart with it, and it
One
was
of my
fun.
favorite. This isn't a good game. This is just something that I find funny. Is Need for Speed Underground was ported to Game Boy Advance back in the day,
Oh,
and I mean they valiant effort for what they were working with. But one of my
right.
favorite things is they tried porting the soundtracks over as well. So you get these horribly bit crushed like renditions. Like
Oh
I always think of
no.
like one of my favorites is that the song played in every high school dance back in the day. The to the window to the wall song.
Uh,
Imagine that, but like it's like super staticky, just like like
oh
just bad
no. Oh no.
on GBA. Like
I'm curious, and I gotta check that out. I gotta hear.
I'm sure there's a OST rip of it somewhere out there, but oh, that was wonderful to experience back in the
Oh,
day.
good. That's well done to the developers trying to do that. But yeah. Oh man. But I don't know, man.
Um,
One of my all-time favorite racing games though has got to be Burnout. Um,
Burnout is so good.
Burnout is I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed in Burnout Paradise
Okay.
because they took out one of my favorite events in Burnout, which was the crash mode.
Oh
Like when
yeah.
you would just go and just try to rack up as much damage as you could. That was so fun. And so like I was so excited when they said that they were going to do a remaster of Burnout, and then I was like, oh, it's Burnout Paradise. I'm like, oh man,
Yeah.
damn it. But
Paradise is such a
Burnout
love
Revenge. Yeah, sorry.
Paradise is such a love to hate game because it's like I love the racing aspect of it, but
Right.
it really got rid of a lot of stuff from those old games. Like, uh, which one was the one you were saying that you really liked?
Like Revenge and like Burnout
Revenge,
3. Yeah. Burnout 3 Revenge, and then no,
Dominator.
Burnout 3 Takedown, and then Burnout Revenge, I think was the one after it. I think
There was
so.
also Dominator. I always just remember that title.
Yeah. Yeah. That
Those were
was
fun games.
yeah. And I think it fell into that same problem because it was like an open world ish racer. Like there really wasn't much to do
Mm,
outside of like getting to the course or whatever it was. So I
yeah,
mean, like if you did get close to a car, you could rev your engine, or was it like rev your engine, flash your lights, and then you start a race like on the fly, which I thought was kind of cool. But you know, that's neither here nor there. Like I want my crash mode. Damn
yeah.
it. It's like,
Um, excuse me. I was thinking about you. You mentioned like Crash Mode. Now, this is a very modern like racing game. Like it's I mean it's been out for a few years now, but this is like one of the more newer ones. It's on a PC. Have you ever played a BeamNG?
no.
It's like it's like a racing kind of like open platform kind of game where like people make just mods for it and stuff.
Okay.
It has some of the most realistic damage in like any racing game ever.
Oh, really? Huh.
Like there's a map that someone made that's literally called like the Leap of Death, and it is so there's two ways you can play this one. You either have you can start directly at the top where the leap is, and it's literally just a ramp that you can jump off into this massive like canyon like pit. And like when the
Okay.
cars hit the ground, they just literally explode into like pieces. It is some of the greatest like there's a YouTuber named Jimmy Broadbent. He does a lot of like racing sim stuff for YouTube.
Yeah.
He does a bunch of BeamNG stuff, and just watching the freaking damage that those games the car's given them
Is
is so
that
freaking.
is that the thing? Excuse me. I've seen a couple of videos on YouTube where they compare like how a car would like these particular type of cars would survive a particular scenario. Is that
Mhm.
that game?
Um, Possibly. I'd have to look at the videos honestly.
Okay. All right. I'll send you some. Maybe you can like there was one recently I saw where they were showing a bunch of like SUVs parked right in front of like this just like this solid concrete uh block,
Hmm.
and then there would be like a an 18 wheel that just rams right into the SUV just to see what would you survive that accident, and like most of them would just crumple into into nothing, into tinfoil, like like tinfoil. So
I'm not
um
sure. Maybe that sounds like something you could do in BeamNG.
yeah, but I mean like everything, it was pretty impressive, and you mentioned like how accurate or how well done the damage models were, so I was like, oh, that sounds like something like that would do. So
Mhm.
so
Unfortunately, the driving isn't the best in that game, but
yeah.
the damage makes up for it because it's like holy shit, like that's crazy. Um,
That's cool.
it's actually kind of funny to me, like thinking about Gran Turismo. They didn't have damage in Gran Turismo until 5.
Yeah. And it was like I think wasn't the excuse always that it was because of the car, like the car companies didn't want them to have it or something like that. I don't know. I heard rumors about that.
I've seen that, but then like Forza did it and like
Right.
didn't care. So I was
Yeah.
always like, I don't know, maybe I think they're just lazy because when they did do it in 5, I remember the complaint was it was like the lamest damage ever.
Right. It was like you scratch. It was like you'd run into a wall like full speed, and then be like a scratch on the side of the car.
Yeah.
It was like what?
I want to say 6 got it right, but 6 is like the most forgotten Gran Turismo like that ever
Yeah.
came out. I will say though, like Gran Turismo, like my favorite part was like unlocking like the bonus cars that you could find, like Gran Turismo 4. Like I
Yeah.
always remember when you finally got the DeLorean, and it was like it's the dumbest thing because it's not even a good car, but then you're like
No.
it's
It's
a
so slow.
DeLorean.
But it is a DeLorean. You're right.
It's like I want to go
I,
to the future.
like the thing that I always loved doing, I was terrible at, is was always the licenses in Gran Turismo.
Oh yeah.
And I think at one point, I don't know if they still have them, but they had like Jeremy Clarkson and like the Top Gear
Oh,
crew talk about like the particular thing that you were going to do, like how you it's supposed to help you or whatnot, become a better racer or whatnot. So or driver. And yeah, like I thought that was it was pretty neat to go through those licenses and see how good you can get. I was, like I said, I was terrible at them, but it was still fun to try and compete and see how much better I could get, you know, through
mm,
them. So
sorry. Excuse me. What's funny is like another game that I wish they'd bring back. I don't even know who owns the probably Ubisoft at this point, but did you ever play a Driver?
yes, that was cool. That was and that had like, was it the more recent one where like you were, or did they all, was it all like just stunt driving?
So
Um,
it is a very interesting series because it started out. What made it super unique was it was kind of like the first real main rival to GTA.
mhm,
But what made the original Driver unique was like it was a solely racing game, like driving game.
yeah,
Because you didn't get out of the car, you just like you did driving based missions, which was really cool.
yeah,
Um, from 2 to 76, they they kind of added elements where you could get out of the car, and it basically just became a GTA clone.
right,
But then they did one. The last one they did, it was unfortunately it was on PS3 and 360, so it's like it's been a while.
yeah.
But it was Driver San Francisco, and they went back to the classic. You're just in the car, and like all your missions are
Hmm.
like car based.
Trying to look this up now. Was that am I confusing it with something else? Was it just the other one called Stuntman? Maybe that's what it was.
Um, I think the caption for Driver had Stuntman in it. No, it wasn't Stuntman. It was Wheelman.
Wheelman.
It was Driver, You Are the Wheelman or something.
Okay.
I think there is a series called Stuntman though. Now that I think
I
about it.
think I think maybe that's what I'm confusing it with. I think it is Stuntman. That was kind of cool because it's like, yeah, you have to like grow your reputation in the stunt industry. And it was like,
Mm.
oh,
Oh yeah, I remember this. Oh, these were cool.
yeah,
I don't own these. I need to find them now.
yes. Oh, there was a PS, I want to say PS Vita game.
Mhm.
Oh my god, what was the racing? It was a racing game, but you were a cop, and oh my goodness, I have it on my Vita. I have to like, oh my god, and like yeah, you all the missions were literally you're just racing to get like catch up to the criminals or whatever, and then like you could like jump out of your car into their car and all that other
Huh.
stuff. What was that called? I'm trying to remember now. Oh my god.
It wasn't Asphalt, was it?
No, it wasn't
No.
Asphalt.
I'm trying to think because I only have the only racers I have on my Vita are Wipeout 2048, I think. There's a Need for Speed Most Wanted on there. The Asphalt game, and then I have like a Spy Hunter game.
Yeah, what was it called? I gotta look it up. I gotta find it. 2049. Most Wanted. Maybe it wasn't a PS Vita game. Maybe it was a PSP game.
Oh, what are you thinking of? Pursuit Force.
Yes.
Okay, that's
I think
PSP
it's
game.
Pursuit. Yeah, okay. Yes, that was a cool game. That was a cool little. I mean, is that technically a racing game?
It's borderline, but I count it.
That
It's kind of like
was
Crazy Taxi is technically a racing game.
right, right. Big studios, huh?
Oh, that's another tragedy of Sony killing studios because they had one bad game.
Oh man, what a shame.
Because they made that Little Deviants game on Vita for the launch,
Oh,
and it wasn't very good.
what a shame. Oh, they did a MotorStorm game too. Okay.
Yeah, they did have the PS2, PSP one, Arctic Edge, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, speaking of MotorStorm, that was I know a lot
That
of
was a
people
cool
gave
game, right?
it crap for like because it was like the launch PS3 game,
Yeah.
and I mean with six axis it was terrible, but when you turn the six axis off, I thought it was a cool idea.
Yeah.
Just like this like basic like hellscape of just cars everywhere to the point where they
Just like
made the
Fury Road,
to
Mad
the
Max.
point where they made the third one literally Apocalypse.
Oh my god.
That was a cool series. I wish Sony didn't kill that studio off as well
Man.
because they made that Drive Club game after that didn't do well.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, Evolution
Well, Evolution.
Studios.
Evolution. Okay. Damn. Okay.
Did you know that Sony Santa Monica, the God of War team? Did you know their first game was a racing game?
Oh, really?
It was a futuristic racer called Kinetica, where like it was a bike racing game, but it wasn't like
Oh.
they didn't pilot bikes. The drivers were the bikes. Like they had their hands and feet were literally wheels. It was
So it's like basically like was his name Axel from Twisted Metal?
kind of, but it was like this like futuristic series where like rather than driving vehicles, they just like were the vehicles. It's a surprisingly fun racer, but it's so bizarre. You're like, this was Sony Santa Monica's first game, and they like didn't make anything after for years until God of War.
Well, I mean, then they got their chance. Who was it? Not Corey Balrog. Who was the first guy? Oh, the father of God of War. What's his name?
Oh, the Twisted Metal guy. What's his name?
Yes. Yes, that's that guy.
How am I? Oh, David Jaffe.
Jaffe. Oh,
Jaffe.
Jaffe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's Jaffe.
Yeah. Yeah, he's his thing. He got a chance to make a god-killing video game and did well. Well done.
Mm.
So, yeah. What other I mean like for me like even like those kart racing games, like I haven't really played one that I've like that's like really stuck with me. I know obviously there's the Mario Karts and
Mm.
the Crash Team Racings and stuff like that, but it's just like for me,
You know one that
uh,
was really good that I kind of miss?
what's that?
Mod Nation Racers for PS3.
I've heard good things about that game, and I think I actually have that on the Vita too.
Yeah, they did the road trip one, I think, on Vita.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, I have that. That's a pretty good game. It's what's cool about that was it was basically like Little Big Planet, the kart racer,
yeah,
before they actually made a Little Big Planet kart racer. Where you could like make your cars, you could make your tracks, like you could basically do anything. Like it was the whole
yeah,
like kind of make your own games thing that
right,
Sony was doing at the time.
yeah. And I think recently, did you get a chance to try Hot Wheels, the new Hot Wheels?
I have not. I've been meaning to pick that up. I just
I
money's tight at the moment.
Yeah, I've been hearing it's been good. I think it was like I think I picked it up. I think Sony had it on one of their like um what do you call it? Their PlayStation Plus collection or whatever it
Mm.
was. Um to grab it there, and I think I might have grabbed. I think it was on Game Pass for a while too. I'm not sure if it's still there, but that was I've been meaning to try that too because it seemed like it could be a little could be fun
Mm.
because like I think Horizon had their Hot Wheels, like I don't know if it was like an event or like there's a particular track you can get on, and then this game came out and it was like we'll just do the whole game like this, and I was like, okay, that sounds cool, be fun. I'd be
Yeah,
down to try that, but
I gotta try that one out because I mean I love Hot Wheels Turbo Racing back on PS1, so I figure you'd think I'd
yeah,
really be into another Hot Wheels racer at some point. I've just never really tried any of the other ones now that I think about it.
hmm
Probably do that at some point because they're
yeah,
probably pretty good.
I'm sure.
Um, Speaking of other types of racers, did you ever play Road Rash?
Oh man, yeah, like I mean, way back in the day, like yeah, yes, I do remember playing that game, and that was wow, that just took me a trip down memory lane there. For sure.
EA literally like used to before EA became EA. EA really had like some really cool games back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Road Rash in particular, I always thought was a cool idea because it was like it was kind of like Need for Speed, but on bikes, and like you
Yeah.
would like fight other people while on the bike and avoiding the cops.
Just
There's one on 3DO as well, and it's like literally, I still think it's arguably the best 3DO game.
yeah. Okay.
It's like super high energy, like super fast paced, like you get really addicted to it too because like the
Hmm.
levels are it's basically you're just running in a straight line to get to
Right.
first, but you're also like fighting other drivers
Yeah.
on bikes with like
Yeah.
pipes and punches and stuff. It's a series that kind of died off with the PS1 era, but
Mhm.
it had its place back in the day, and I'm honestly kind of surprised they didn't keep it going because
Yeah.
there actually is a spiritual successor on all the modern systems. It's called Road Redemption.
Road Redemption. Okay.
It's basically the same idea. It's like a bike game. Me and Thrak have been meaning to do a follow up on it because I think Road Rash is still our most successful game that we had for 3DO over on 3DO Experience.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
Road
that was a fun
Redemption.
game. I love motorcycle racers in particular.
Yeah. I mean, especially since my wife will never let me have a motorcycle. It's cool to have like a motorcycle game as an outlet, so
Mm,
I can be like, oh yeah, I can see how dangerous it is to drive this without, potentially putting myself in danger of riding one. But yeah, Road Redemption looks pretty cool.
mm. No, it's like the same idea behind like Road Rash, just more modern.
Yeah. Oh wow.
There's another game on Switch that's not a lot of people talk about, but is actually really fun. You ever heard of Fast RMX?
No.
Imagine like a spiritual successor to F Zero in a sense, where it's like it
Okay.
looks more like Wipeout when you first look at it, but it plays more like F Zero, where it's like a super high speed, like futuristic, like hover vehicle kind of racer.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was
Okay.
a very early Switch online game. It's never had a physical release or anything, but it was one of the first games on the Switch store, and I picked it up on a whim. And it is a very fun, fast-paced racer that kind of it kind of fills that itch that F Zero, like the lack of F Zero, has kind of like given like fans for a while.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. And like this also gets me reminds me of like the Star Wars pod racer stuff like that too.
That was a pretty good one. I'm not
That
gonna
was
lie.
fun.
It was
Yeah.
better than the Star Wars Episode One game, that's for sure.
Yeah. This is cool. Like I mean I always appreciate when a racing game I don't know why a lot of games that I've played in the past like just don't give you that sense of speed.
Mm,
And then it's like it's just you just feel like you're going through the motions. Like you don't feel that tension whether it's like like the audio with the like the wind kind of like just ripping through your ear and or like the screen kind of adding the action lines or whatever it
mm,
is like it's like all those like subtle things like, it's just like important to give your player that like the extra tension. I mean and that's why I loved like Burnout when Burnout did that too. Like when you were like when you dropped that nitrous and like your like everything just kind of went blurry. It was just oh so fun. It's like you were just tempting fate at that point.
mm.
So like you're gonna crash. It's like just hold on for that for dear life.
So you want to know another really cool, obscure PS1 racer that a completely different type of racing this time around? It is
Yeah.
so my buddy Josh from the Still Loading podcast,
Oh yeah.
he tipped me off to this one because he did a whole episode on it. But there is a snowmobile racing game on PS1 called Sledstorm.
Oh okay.
It
Huh.
is. You'd think it would just be racing in snow, but it's like it's pretty crazy how they kind of got like that snowmobile kind of feel.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Oh geez, excuse me.
Sorry.
Game colds.
Yeah.
It's funny how they kind of got that real feel of like actually racing through like snow. Like it doesn't feel like dirt. It doesn't feel like pavement. It's got this unique feel to it, and
Yeah.
you're just like snowmobile racing. It's like crazy. Like I loved that period of racing games where they were very experimental and it wasn't like strictly cars or bikes.
Hmm. I agree. That's important, and I think I don't think either one of us has really touched any like um was there any like really space or flight racing games that I don't think.
That's a good question now because I'm actually thinking about that. Because like the closest I can think of is like Diddy Kong Racing, where like you could switch into flight mode,
Uh-huh.
but that was just kind of an alternate race, like kart racer. I guess you could kind of do it in Sonic All Stars Transformed as well.
Hmm.
That's actually really interesting. I'm like trying to think now. Is there a flying based racing game?
Like is there I mean was
I'm
Pilot Wings a racing game? No.
No, that was more of an arcadey kind of just stunt kind of game.
Okay.
Um, I'm actually looking this up now because I'm really curious. Flying racing games. I've never heard of. Oh, we're getting into some iTunes store garbage right here. I just found a picture of a Hummer with wings, so
Oh
that
my god.
that
Okay.
leads me to believe there is not a
No.
legitimate. Oh my! I'm gonna look away from this now. Oh, well, I guess there was a game called Red Bull Air Race. That might be what we're looking for. Um,
I guess most of the time it's going to be combat, right? It's going to be a combat
yeah,
like yeah.
when I think of like air, like flying games, like immediately, like my thought is like Ace Combat.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure if like racing, because like the closest thing I think of is like Wipeout or something, where it's like
Mhm.
more, you're not really in the air though, you're kind of just on the ground.
Yeah, I guess that's true because like how would you do that because you couldn't keep a plane on a track so to speak.
Yeah, it's harder, like,
Yeah.
because now I'm trying. There's got to be a space racing game, like That feels like it would make sense, but
Right.
I'm probably going to be disappointed when I look this up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Space racing games. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. Uh I guess kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess thinking about it, I guess that's just kind of like a medium that wouldn't work exactly compared,
Yeah.
especially like but now that I'm thinking about it though, I just had a thought. There's another kind of racing that does work. Water racing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I just thought Hydro Thunder
Yeah.
or
Hydro Thunder.
what was the N64 wave race?
Wave Racer. Yep. Yep. Wave Race. Wave Race. Yeah.
Like jet ski racing essentially. Um I think the whole thing is it's like you need just like a solid surface really or semi-solid anyways.
Right. Right. Yeah. I guess that's it. Because you're and yeah, it's not only that, but like I guess you're going in and you're not really like you can only go horizontally, so to speak, as opposed to, you know, being able to like be like, oh no, I'm gonna take my direction up and to the right kind of thing. I don't
I
know.
think
It's just
I think the problem that comes with trying to make a racer in space or the air is you kind of need a track like layout,
yeah, yeah,
but when you can kind of go anywhere, it's very hard to keep a layout permanently fixed.
yeah,
And I think that's partially, I guess, like the closest thing I can think of is this is going to be a really wild stretch, but Superman 64 going through the rings, I
yeah.
guess.
I guess that's the only thing you can think
I
of.
mean, he
Yeah.
controls like a car in the air, so
Yes.
in a sense.
Oh man, that's true. Oh man,
But would that be
flying
fun to
car.
play though?
Yeah, yeah. Probably not.
It's funny we haven't mentioned it yet, but like to me, like one of the most iconic racing games probably ever made is Daytona USA.
Yeah, I was like I was wondering when I when that was gonna sneak in, but yeah, that Daytona USA, Cruising USA.
Cruising USA as well.
Yeah,
You still can go to like a pizza joint and like find a Cruising USA like
right.
arcade cabinet sitting there.
Yeah.
I was laughing. Me and Alex went to Retro World Expo recently, and
Oh
we met up
yeah.
with Josh from Still Loading. And at one point, they were playing Double Dragon, and they like completely were just engrossed in this, and like
Yeah.
completely just. I had went to the bathroom, and I came back, and they didn't even notice me. So I was like, all right, they're good. So I just went to walk around, and there was a Daytona USA cabinet on the other side conveniently,
Oh,
and I
nice.
was like, all right, I guess I can do a couple races here. It is that game to me is like the perfect racer because like you can just literally hop right in.
Yeah.
It's not super like realistic, but it's realistic enough, but it's also super arcadey.
Yeah.
And like you could just jump in, do like a couple races, and then come back. And like I literally did that, raced like 3 races, then came back. They were still playing Double Dragon. They didn't even notice I walked away.
Oh my gosh. Like I remember and like and of course when you had like the four cabinets next to each other, you literally were racing against other people there, and
Mhm.
it was just a grand old time trying to compete with these people. And then um the one game I know I put a lot of quarters into was the Initial D arcade machine.
Oh, nice.
that
I
was
know exactly what you're
that
thinking there.
was that was so fun. And of course they had the amazing soundtrack as well when you're driving those cars. It was just it was just such a good time, right? Uh,
That's like with Daytona USA for me is like that
yeah.
the guy just singing like the Daytona, like that just make when a racing game has a karaoke mode that they've done something right with the sound
Yeah.
design.
Yeah.
Then it
Oh
sings
man.
game over to you when you end the game.
Right.
It's great.
it,
Sega AM2 was just different than most developers back in the day.
it's true. They just had a good time. Had a good time trying to make these like wacky games and making them as wacky as possible too.
The 90s and early 2000s were just such a fun time for gaming because like there was none of the stuff that we have now where it's like everything's got to be like AAA. Like there was
Yeah,
just so much experimentation.
yeah,
It was like almost every developer was an indie developer back then.
yeah. I mean, because people were just like, just ship it out there. Who cares? Let's see what if
Yeah,
anything sticks.
and they actually had to finish their games and because
That's
they
true
couldn't
too.
patch them at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Otherwise, you get panned. You could be like, "This is terrible. Don't ever make a game again." And then,
Yeah, you get big rigs and you're winner.
yeah. Have you have you I don't know if you would consider this a racing game, but maybe in a way. Um, any of the Mud Runner or those kind of that series? Have you tried that?
Um, I've played one of them. It was a while ago, so I'm kind of fuzzy on it.
Yeah,
Let me look this up real quick because I'm trying to jog my memory. It sounds extremely familiar because I definitely played one of them.
yeah. I
Um,
mean, you're basically you keep talking about big rigs. It's like, yeah, you're driving big rigs most of the time in it.
oh, yep, I remember this. This is just fun.
Yeah, I was that was probably one of our earlier episodes, like where like we this came on our um this fell in our lap, and we're like, oh, this is gonna be so dumb. Like this is just gonna be you're driving big rigs, but it was surprisingly deep and like really difficult, but like fun in a way too. So I was yeah, I was just kind of blown away. And now they have what was it, Snow Runner as well. I think we played
Mm.
that as, and I think there's a big following too for these games. So
People have a
yeah,
fascination with like trucking. Like it is an
yeah,
interesting like industry.
and when we after I was finished playing, I was like, I have all the respect in the world for these guys that drive these big rigs and not crash into things like I did during my
Yeah.
playthrough. It was
So
just unbelievable.
you bringing this game up, you completely just reminded me of another Sega game that's completely been forgotten nowadays.
Yeah.
But excuse me. Um, this game was so ridiculous back then. It's I always it brought it up to me because Sega AM2 also made it, and
Okay.
it is literally big rigs if it was a good game. Uh, there's a game that Sega made called 18 Wheeler American Pro Trucker.
Oh, I think I've seen. Oh no, I have seen that in the arcade somewhere. Yeah.
It's literally a truck driving like racing game simulator,
Yeah.
and like you like basically have to like get the your hauls on time like through these
Yep.
like busy streets while racing against like your psychotic rival. Because it's Sega, it's 90s Sega, so they actually were really fun with everything they did.
Right.
But
Right.
my favorite part was in between the races, you actually had little mini games like parking mini games, and you had to park the big rigs. Remember, it was the most hellish thing because you get all the your respect for these guys goes up because you're like, I understand now. This is hell. But I
Yeah.
always love those like little mini games. It's like, oh, park the big rig, see how well you do.
Oh man, it is not easy at all. And like my sister-in-law has a pickup like one of the like the bigger like an F-150 I think, and I'm like, I don't know how they drive this beast of a vehicle. And then you think of something even bigger and you're trying to park this thing like, oh, forget it. I'm done.
Yeah,
I'm not doing
I have
this.
I have so much respect for those guys, especially like dealing with the shit they have to deal with on the highway all the time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, totally. But yeah, what can you do? Everyone's got to make their money.
So we're coming up on 2 hour, well, getting close to 2 hours. I
Yeah.
think this would be a good time to like. I think we said we would do top three racing games of all time,
Ooh, yeah.
and I've been trying to think of this the entire episode, and it is a lot harder than I expected.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. I don't know if I I don't know if I would put mine in any particular order. Um, but Burnout 3 definitely is on that list.
Nice.
Um, Need for Speed Underground. and ooh, I know I'm picking all like essentially real car stuff. So and it's probably gonna be Gran Turismo 3, I think,
Nice.
for me. And like only because like I never had a PS. Wait, Gran Turismo 2 came out on PS1, right? Yeah, I never had a
Yeah.
PS1, so like my first real Sony um console was the PS2, and that was when like yeah, GT3 was everything for me at that
Mm.
time. So that was always a good time to play that game then.
The
But
graphics were unreal in that game when it first came
yeah,
out.
yeah, oh my goodness. It was just it was so good. And then like I think was that I remember no, maybe it was something else. Did PS2 allow you to play a custom soundtrack? Or am I thinking
Uh,
about that differently?
I, hmm. I want to say I know PS3 could. I want to say yes, but I don't remember
I
exactly.
don't remember. Anyway, but yeah, like I mean, those are probably in no particular order. Those are probably my top three.
Those are
Um,
all solid choices, honestly.
yeah, but but yeah, I mean, what are yours, Bill?
So for this is tough because I love so many of these games. Um, so for me, it would probably be um. So we got Wipeout HD.
Mhm.
Um, that one was huge because I remember that I got that one for free during the infamous PlayStation Network outage.
Nice.
Good times because they gave us our two free games, and I my choices were so everybody picked Infamous because Infamous was like the wow they're giving that away for free game, and then
Yeah.
I already had Little Big Planet, and I wasn't really interested in any of the other stuff. So I was like, oh, they got Wipeout HD on here. Like I loved Wipeout back in the day, so I grabbed that one. It amazes like they really hit their peak there, and that's the reason I think why they've re-released it twice since then.
Yeah.
Because that it's just such a great like futuristic racer. Like it's kind of like they solidified every aspect of that franchise into one complete game.
Huh.
So that one's
Okay.
up there. My second is Daytona USA. Like that is still
Yeah.
like one of my favorite racers just of all time. It's dumb arcadey fun with like the most uplifting, just kind of like everything about that game is positive.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter if it's the original arcade version, the Saturn version, the Dreamcast version.
Right.
It's just fun no matter what. And then my final one, this one is very nostalgic to me, and the game itself probably isn't the greatest racer
Mhm.
anymore by today's standards, but this was like the game I played the most on my PS2 back in the day because it was just one of the earliest games released for it. But that was Test Drive Off Road Wide Open.
Oh.
It was interestingly made by Angel Studios, so like one of their before they got acquired by Rockstar, it was one of their few kind of out like branching out games.
Mhm.
And it was a cool racer, but what I loved is it had three open world tracks where you could literally just
Oh.
explore these like for the time massive 3D environments, and like you could they had like all these cool little like Easter eggs. Like one of them was literally Yosemite, and you could like there was a giant rock mountain that you could climb up with a like a Hummer or something if you had the right traction.
Yeah.
um there was a forest fire you could find, and there was like fire trucks driving around that you could drive with.
Oh wow.
There was train tracks, and like you could actually like get hit by a train if you wanted. Which was fun as a kid. As an adult you're like wow, I was very entertained, I guess. But I hadn't played it for years, and I recently picked it up just for nostalgia's sake, and I'm like, this
Yeah.
is still pretty fun. The
Yeah.
cars control very well. Its intro theme was also fueled by Metallica, which I think is kind of funny. Um,
Okay.
yeah, it's the Test Drive series to me was always kind of like the second. It always played second fiddle to Need for Speed for like years,
Yeah. Yeah.
which granted kind of was deserved because Test Drive just was never as good as Need for Speed until they got to like the later games, like Test Drive Le Mans on the Dreamcast is like an amazing endurance racing game.
Yeah.
And then like the Test Drive Unlimited games that have came out on PS3 and 360. Those are phenomenal racers that nobody talks about.
No.
Excuse me. Eden Studios made those, I believe, too.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, like Test Drive Off Road. That one was like my nostalgic. Like really got me. That solidified my love for racing games by far.
Nice. Nice. You know, I don't think we mentioned this game, and I'm surprised we haven't. And that's Ridge Racer. What
Oh,
have
so we mentioned it briefly and we kind of forgot about it early on.
okay. Like most of everyone, I guess.
Ridge Racer, Ridge Racer. Oh, you know what? I might change my listing and Ridge Racer Type 4.
Hmm.
That game is so okay. I might kick out Wipeout HD. Ridge Racer Type 4.
Wow. Okay.
That game is like perfection to me. Like that is like one of the best PlayStation racing games.
All time. Okay. All right.
Like when they announced the PlayStation Classic, as controversial as like the game selection was for that thing, when I saw Ridge Racer Type 4 was one of the games, I was like, all right, Sony, you did something right.
Nice. Well, I definitely I want to check that out because I've always like appreciated the Ridge Racer series just because of how like how odd the cars controlled in that
Yeah.
game.
I
And I
always
was like,
remember the guy at the Sony presentation,
yes,
Kazurai, the
yeah.
Ridge Racer.
He was so excited about it, and like then he just got crickets after that. It was like ugh, awkward.
I
That was
guess.
an amazing
Was that the
press
same
conference.
E3 as was that the same one that gave us Giant Enemy Crab?
Yes, the
Oh,
realistic historical battles, real historical battles, and it was a giant crab. Yes,
press X for massive damage. Oh, poor Sony.
poor Sony, but they're okay. They're doing all right now.
Yeah.
You know, re-releasing one game every 2 years. It's all good. But yeah,
Uh, oh jeez. I don't want to like end this now, but I'm losing my voice really quick
no, it's
as
all
the
good.
thing
It's
is
all
going.
good.
So before we wrap up, I just wanted you to plug your show real quick.
Yeah, and first of all, thank you so much, Bill, for having me on this episode.
No, thanks for coming on, dude. I'm
At
sorry I forgot about it for a month.
no, 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 not at all. I mean, I was honestly, I was just like, I'm gonna be like, this was probably my most daunting um recording, I think, just because I like, just because of your the wealth of knowledge that comes out of you, Bill. And I'm like, oh God, how am I going to keep up with this guy? I'm going to try my best. And so, but
I mean, you pulled out some ones that I completely forgot about. So
well, I mean, that just might be because of age at this point, but that's fine. But yeah, like it was such a blast to chat with you about, and then kind of go back on that nostalgia train and talk about some stuff that we've both talked shared. So yes, the whole point of me is to be plug my show. Yes, I am Chris. I am part of the duo that does 1 hour, one decision, 1H1D. It is a Xbox Game Pass podcast where we play a random game on Xbox for an hour and decide if it's worth playing past that hour. So we've been doing that now for just over 3 years, almost, I think, at this point. Um, Hit our 150th episode recently as well, so that was
oh,
cool
nice.
to able to do that. And yeah,
Ironically, this
we're
is going to be episode 151.
really, yeah, there
Yep.
you go. Congrats. And so yeah, it was we're on socials, Twitter or X or whatever, TC1H1D. We've got a link tree that where you can check out the show, and I'm on the Discord with you, Bill, on the podcast. Oh man, I keep forgetting the name of the show, the podcast thing. It's Podcast
Oh,
Collective, no?
Co-op Network.
Co-op Network. Thank you. There you go. Thank you. So yeah, I'm on there too. You can come say hello there. And again, I thank you so much for letting us chat about this. And we definitely need to have you and maybe Alex on the show as well when we when we get to 2024. So
Nice. No, I had said it when we had officially met last year. I think it was last year on the show that was formerly known as Hey Drunk Gamers. Um, love those guys, but
yeah,
I had said it there. Like as a collector, the idea of your show you think would be like the exact opposite of everything that I stand for as a game collector. But that's honestly why I like it so much because it is a different perspective and like
right.
I love the idea of like you guys just pick the game and then it's like you get the 1 hour to decide and it's either you like it or you don't and you move on. And
Yeah,
it's just to me like that is fascinating because these are a lot of games that I probably wouldn't have even considered. And
yeah,
I can't say I listen to every episode, but I try to at least keep up with you guys as
yeah. And
you know.
I mean, we try not to make it so like you have to listen. That's we would appreciate if you listen to all of them, but at the same time, we know we're like we're still learning how to get better at hosting the shows and stuff like that. But also trying to like the way I think of the show now is like almost like here's all of our episodes and you could pick the ones that you're kind of curious about and maybe learn a little bit about that game.
Hmm.
uh, Not everything might pique your interest, but like that's kind of the point of the show too. It's like try something new. You might be
Hmm.
surprised because we definitely have. At least I have definitely been surprised with a lot of the games that we've randomly gotten to play. So
That's like my favorite part is like when like you find a game that like you completely neither of you guys had any interest in, and you're like, this game's great. And I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
awesome. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool seeing. I mean, like Cocoon was one of them. I was really blown away by it. I was like, "Oh, okay, this seems like it could be kind of neat for like a hot second." But I was like, "Okay." I think most of the time what I've learned of from for myself as someone who plays games, I appreciate when the designer respects my time and also um takes the time to kind of layer the the um, the game loop, so to speak, and like just continue to just build on it, and then so that I can get better at the game and appreciate it, and it's not like just the one trick that I'm doing over and over again.
mm,
So that's something that I've grown to appreciate as well. So
no, definitely. And I'll be sure to include all your links in the description for this episode. But no, once again, though, thanks for doing this, dude. And it's been tough like this like month because Alex has been gone. And I've been like struggling to like find guests to keep going, and I
no,
completely
yeah,
like legit forgot we had planned to do this like back then. It hit me like a week ago, and I was like, crap, I really got to follow up on that. I'm like, I guess now's the time because I know the struggle was Alex is not a huge racing game fan. I didn't want to bore her and have her sit in the background the whole time, so I figured I'm like, all right, she's not going to be here anyways. Now I got to get this one done now. So
right, right, right.
no,
No,
thanks for
it's all
coming on,
good.
dude. Though this was fun, like a
Yeah,
blast.
thank you.
And once again, guys, you can find the Gaming Collecting Podcast on all your podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcasts and Spotify. You can find all of our links at Linktree/The Barbecue Games. And if you'd like, you can join the GNC Podcast Discord server, where you can find all the information on gaming and collecting, the 3DO experience, and Geek Addicts, along with talking about gaming, anime, or just any other topics. We're all a friendly bunch there. Don't worry about that. And until next time, guys, we will see you all later.
See ya.